Ladies and gentlemen, it is another Grid Network special 8 o'clock spot where we talk about the ongoings in sports currently. The Grid Network game show, the 8 o'clock spot. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Alfred Barsar Jr., who has been here since Bryson gave it up in January. When he comes back, only God knows. But our panelists today, introducing first, the man who can't seem to be beat on this show, Mr. 8 o'clock spot himself, Mr. Arthur Hurst.
What's going on, gentlemen? Let's have another good episode tonight.
Arthur, you are unusually calm. That doesn't give me a good feeling.
What you mean? I'm always calm.
I guess when the topics start, we'll get the energy out of you. And then Dylan Lima back on the show again.
Hey, we're on the Christmas Eve of football with the NFL draft. I'm definitely excited. Plenty to talk about today.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, the man who has been hurt the most by Luka Doncic being traded away from the Mavericks, Mr. Tyler Reddington.
Hey, I'm here, man. Fire Nico. We could begin the healing process. When that begins, we could begin the healing process. But hey, I'm happy to talk about some great other sports. There's a lot to talk about. Glad to be here on the grid.
All righty, and then let's bring up the 8 o'clock spot rules for those who have never watched this show before. So, 3 panelists per round, 3-point distributions. The best take gets 5 points on the topic. Second best take 3 points. Third best gets 1 point. And the leaderboard for this season, as you can see, Arthur Hurst at a whopping 341 points. It's not even close. I don't even think anybody will be able to catch him by the time this season wraps up. But let's go to the comments really, really quickly. Good friend of the show, member of the Grid Network, Patrick Brown says, happy NFL Draft Eve. And Lake Show 2.0, let's go. We'll be talking about that and much more. Our first topic, the New Orleans Saints organization says that Derek Carr has a shoulder injury, but they won't list what exactly the injury is or how long he's been suffering or when it occurred. They also said they're not changing their approach to the draft. Is this a mistake on the Saints' part? And how bad do you think the injury is? And we'll start with Dylan, since this is you proclaimed today Christmas Eve of the NFL. So go ahead, my friend.
Okay, so it's definitely interesting. I think the way that the Saints are playing this, so again, at this time of the draft process, everybody's lying. Everybody's going to say whatever. No one wants to show their head. On one hand, I could definitely see the Saints just sticking to their guns and just seeing where what falls to them in the draft. Like, I don't see them making any big moves. I remember Tyler just about a couple weeks ago saying that Shadir Sanders may fall to him, and he very well may be. I was kind of a little wary at first, but the more negative things that keep on talking about Shadir, who's to say that he doesn't fall to him? And especially with the Derek Carr injury and how bad his shoulder is, I mean, trust, no one wants to have shoulder surgery this time of year, especially, training camp's about to be starting in a month or two. I don't think the Saints are really in any kind of mode to really be in win now by any means. So they may just take who's the best available, and I wouldn't blame them. They also have, Spencer Rattler. Not many people are fans of him, but he's still a young guy. He's going to be in his second year in the league. Why not see what he can do? If he's not great, then the Saints will probably be a bad team again. They'll probably be at a higher pick to be able to get the quarterback they really want. Looking at their roster, I mean, Chris Olave's of Rashid Shaheed are some solid players that I think they would, pair great with Shadir Sanders if they want to go that way. But I mean, they could go just about anywhere, and I don't think they could really do anything wrong at this point. So I don't think they've really said who they want either. So I think it's just a matter of who falls to them. If Shadir falls to him, I think there's a strong chance they'll go for him.
All right, Tyler, do you think there's more to the Carr injury? And if you're the Saints, are you going with a quarterback?
Look, I think it's a perfectly great question because this needs to be answered. Because when you have Kamara and you have Olave, you just signed Olave again, and you have the defense you have the potential you have. you need to be contending for at least the playoffs every year, and the Saints have not gotten that done. This tells me that the Derek Carr injury is not that bad. Mickey Arison has gone with offensive linemen and whoever's best in the draft. He's had his ways. He's stuck in his ways. It's not going to change now. And the fact is, the Saints have a terrible offensive line. If you draft Shador Sanders and you're not able to, keep him on his feet, then what good is it? So I think the guy that they just cut, they cut one of the starting offensive linemen this week because he has not been producing the last 4 years. In fact, our own Mike Guido has a tight end going in the first round to the Saints, but I see them definitely going with the offensive lineman. But the clock is on the Saints. They got to do something, and they got to be quick because they have way too much talent and they have way too many fans to be playing like they are and not showing up for games and not showing up for the playoffs. So I do expect them to be better this year, but I do not expect them to go outside of their comfort zone and draft a quarterback.
Okay. And Arthur, last but not least, you're on the clock, sir.
It's as the saying goes, when somebody shows you who they are, you might as well believe them. And I believe that, like the rest of the fellas, I believe they're not going to take a quarterback. If they do, I don't believe it'll be Shador. It could probably be Tyler Shook. It could probably be Jackson Dart. If they're able to move up in the draft and trade up in the draft. But I think number 9, they're definitely going to go with somebody other than the quarterback. They can go with somebody even like Mason Graham to help boost up their defensive line if they wanted to. They just have a lot of holes, and one of those holes starts with their starting quarterback. This is draft time, right? And smoke screens, you see them from every single team, especially surrounding Shador Sanders. Is the more smoke and stuff that comes out about him, it shows me that okay, somebody really wants him. Or else he's not going to get talked about this much. Now, yes, he does have the Sanders last name, so that might be contradictory to what I just said. But if it shows that the team really wants Shador Sanders that bad for him to be able to, for the lies and the rumors and stuff that they're saying about, somebody wants him to drop very, very bad to them. But as far as the Saints go, the first hole they have to plug is with Derek Carr, and right now they're really being quiet about it, right? You got the owner saying that we want to make sure that we have clarity on that situation. Well, it doesn't get much clearer than the potential fact that he may be out the 2025 campaign. And if that is true, then you're going to need a quarterback. Now, is Spencer Rattler that guy, right? The owner also talked about is that whoever we end up drafting, he's going to be the face of that position for the next 8 to 10 years. Well, the last guy they did that with in that position was on the defensive side, and he wasn't able to make a Pro Bowl. He was there for 5 seasons. So you hope that these questions are able to be answered with the draft coming up very soon tomorrow. But it looks like they're not going to be taking a quarterback. And if they do, it won't be in the first round. They're more than likely going to have to trade up for one. And I don't believe it'll be Shador Sanders. I believe he'll be gone. So I believe that they should look out for Tyler Shook or Jackson Dart.
Okay, and it's a fair assessment, all 3 points. But I do believe that there's more to the situation because usually, and Arthur, you said it when you called it a smoke screen, but it's very telling to me. They don't want to say how long this injury, because this injury just came up out of nowhere. They don't want to say how long or when he suffered it or what have you. They don't even want to say if he needs surgery or not. So I don't know, but the Saints brass, they know what's going on better than anybody else. But I'm going to give best take to Arthur because you provided all those alternate options. Second best take, we're going to go ahead and give to Dylan because you were the first to mention Spencer Rattler. And then we got Tyler in the rear with the point. Hold on. We've got a comment here. Perel says, what's up? Thank you for tuning into the show. Staying with the NFL, Patrick Mahomes has come out in the media and said that this upcoming season, the Chiefs are going to, quote unquote, unleash the offense. When asked to clarify about his comments, he was talking about with the current cast of characters that they have on the offense. So that remains to be seen. Do you believe that with this current group of wide receivers and offensive players that the Chiefs offense can rebound? And we'll start with you, Arthur. Or is Mahomes bluffing?
Nah, man. I mean, you got to understand. This is the team that's been owning the AFC basically ever since Patrick Mahomes got in that starting role, right? And with Coach Andy Reid and then Travis Kelsey, who's one of the greatest tight ends ever, the greatest ever in some people's eyes. You can't count them out, right? Those three have been together. They've won championships together. They've dominated their conference together. They're going to do everything in their power to jump back to the top. So you lose DeAndre Hopkins this offseason to the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, cool. So you're banking on Isaiah Pacheco staying healthy this year. You're banking on Hollywood Brown to stay healthy this year. You're banking on Rashee Rice and Justin Ross to have a jump. You're banking on Juju Smith-Schuster to be the veteran in that wide receiver room. It I believe they can, right? I remember Barry Grant Jr. talking about how when we had our post Super Bowl show, and he said that attrition, right? What was the one word that came to the Kansas City Chiefs and why they lost this game? Attrition, right? There was this was their third Super Bowl, right? They've been in the Super Bowl numerous times in the last 5 to 7 years. They were trying to three-peat, and that just wears on you, right? So the biggest thing for me is, will Travis Kelsey be Travis Kelsey? And it didn't look like he was Travis Kelsey that we've known to love, the dominance, the hardware that he's able to just put on teams. It seemed like he was putting a lot of hardware on himself, and he didn't look the same, right? He didn't produce a whole lot in the Super Bowl, and we know that's Patrick Mahomes' go-to guy in the clutch. Right, I need Travis Kelsey to go out here and make a play or two, and we're able to win the game that way. So I believe they can. I believe that this offense is going to be able to use the offseason to really build, to get back healthy, to retool, to get their bodies right. But the main question is, will Travis Kelsey come out being Travis Kelsey this year? Or are we going to still see a tenth of his greatness and what he is? Because we know that retirement is on the horizon, and we don't know that we know that because he said it, right. I don't know, right. And as I'm going to take it day by day, and we're just going to see. And it looks like he wants to stay in the league. It looks like he really wants to run it back, and he's committed to that. So my biggest thing is to watch out how Travis Kelsey performs this year. In my opinion, he's going to be their continued X factor from here on out as he gets older.
Okay. Dylan, your opinion, is Mahomes just saying this to say this because he has to believe in his team, or do you think this current offensive group of the Chiefs can rebound in 2025?
You know, Mahomes has every right to talk his talk. He's quite easily the best quarterback in the NFL, and it's not even close. He's shown the past couple years after Tyreek Hill got traded away that he could just put the whole team on his back and and do what he can to win championships or even just make it. He's on such a generational run that the way I'm seeing how the Chiefs are building their roster is kind of reminiscent to the Patriots when they were having their dynasty with Tom Brady, because they have their stacked defense. They have a good rotation of wide receivers. They're not as explosive as you'd want them to be. I mean, I'm a big fan of Xavier Worthy. Rashee Rice is very solid, but I know he's had his injury issues, and Hollywood Brown can't stay healthy. So beyond them three, it's hard to see anyone else on that roster making any kind of splashes. I'm in the train of thought that Travis Kelsey is at his last legs. Like he's watching him in that Super Bowl and leading up to it, he kind of has his little button hook spin move that he's got, signature move, but he can't move like he used to. He's definitely he wants to run it back one more time because why not? The Chiefs are looking like the bona fide contender coming out of the AFC every year. So why wouldn't you keep on riding that horse until the horse dies? But their ultimate kryptonite is going to be their running game. It's going to be their offensive line. I don't trust that offensive line at all. They looked very suspect leading up to the Super Bowl and then got exposed by the Eagles. Joe Tooney, who was arguably their best offensive lineman, got traded away in the offseason. They didn't make any real buffs to their offensive line to beef up. And then you need a running game. So many teams keep on trying to stay away from the running game and be one-dimensional. I mean, when you have Patrick Mahomes, anything can happen, but you need to get defenses off guard. You need to have some unpredictability. Do I think the Chiefs have that with their running game? Absolutely not. It could change, but I don't see them being explosive. I don't see them being reminiscent of the Tyreek Hill years when Mahomes was throwing 50 touchdowns and was doing all the the hoops and all the hurrah that he had in previous years. I just don't see it. Will they be a great team? Yes. Will Mahomes will them to another Super Bowl? Most likely. But will they be an explosive offense? I don't think so. I just think Mahomes is just blowing smoke because he can talk that. There's no one else that's better than him in the NFL at the quarterback position than him. So he definitely deserves to talk his talk.
All right, and last but not least, Tyler, do you think Mahomes has to say this because he's on the team, or do you really think that this current offensive group in the Chiefs can have a solid 2025?
Oh, they definitely can have a solid 2025. I mean, who are we to question Pat Mahomes? Are you telling me when Tyreek Hill left, everybody didn't say, "Oh no, they don't have what it takes"? And then last year,
I think we lost Tyler. There we go.
guess who it is that gets the reception to close out the AFC Championship? It was a guy that hadn't got a reception all year, Samaje Perine. So you have Andy Reid, you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Travis Kelce. As long as you have those three, you could plug in me and Arthur in there. We're going to get some scores. We're going to get some touches because those three are masterminds when it comes to football. And yes, I think Patrick Mahomes, he hasn't lost in a while. He hasn't had that, oh, maybe you're not the best check in a while. So I think he's going to come out on fire, and I think this offense is going to be just as good as it ever has been. Yes, Travis Kelce is going down, but Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes.
Uh, T- Tyler, you might want to repeat that last sentence. Your mic had cut out, sir.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
We got you now.
Okay, yeah. So uh, I said Travis Kelce. He's probably is going to be a little bit of a shell of what he's been, just because Father Time is undefeated, right? But I think with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, they're going to come up with a game plan that's going to keep this offense just as prolific as it always has been. So yes, I see this offense being just as prolific.
All right, and before we get to the score, we're going to go to the comments. Clint Alexander says if the Chiefs O line is dominant, that team is near impossible to beat. Romy the Best says rest in peace, Steve Mongo McMichael. I gotta fact check that one. I know he got moved to hospice today. That'd be a big loss. Football Hall of Famer. And then Barry Grant says, shout outs to Arthur for the reference. Champs recognize champs. All right, Barry, we know who you're rooting for. All right, so best take, I'm going to go ahead and give that to Dylan, only because I too am not sold on the Chiefs' run game, which you were the only one to mention that. Of course, Pacheco was hurt most of last season, and yeah, the run game was just non-existent most of that season. And people fail to forget this Chiefs offense struggled. A lot of the games they won last season came down to a single possession, field goal or less, in games where the offense didn't particularly look good. I'm going to have to go ahead and give Tyler second best take because you said something very interesting. Mahomes hasn't lost in a while, so I think is a more of a mental thing for him. When you get a guy who's not used to losing and takes the biggest loss of the season, maybe that lights a fire under him. So, and then we've got Arthur. So after 2 rounds, we've got Dylan in first with 8, Arthur with 6, and Tyler with 4. Going into our third topic. Of course, the NBA playoffs have been underway. They're currently going on right now with several games. And I want to ask an open-ended question to each of you. So far, what have you taken away or learned or been surprised by in this NBA playoffs so far? And we'll start with Arthur first.
The Oklahoma City Thunder now look like a number 1 seed. Now, for context, they are playing the Memphis Grizzlies, who were coming off that game against the Dallas Mavericks where they had a fight for that last seed. I get it. And the Memphis Grizzlies they just don't look like themselves. They look tired at times. But what we're seeing in this series, especially in game two, every time the Memphis Grizzlies made a run and they were able to cut it to single digits, it's just like OKC just put the gas on and just said, no, you're not going to come back. They've beaten through their first two games, they've beaten the Memphis Grizzlies by 70 points. Right. So you're telling me that a year after they get bounced out of the first round, right? And everybody had that same thing last year. Okay, they're the number one seed. Are they going to be able to prove it in the playoffs? Oh, they're young and all of these things. And last year they did look young. They didn't look like the number one seed. They looked very fraudulent. They look like front runners. And now in this series, in the first two games against the Memphis Grizzlies, they're taking it right to them. They're saying, no, you're not going to be able to come back and beat us. No, we're not going to allow you in this game. Shea is able to do whatever he wants. And right now, everybody is feeding off of it. Jalen Williams is playing very well. Chet Holmgren is playing very well. That team looks like a well-balanced oil machine right now. And so right at this very moment, the way that the OKC Thunder are just handling and taking care of the Memphis Grizzlies, they look like a bona fide, sure number one seed of the Western Conference. And I believe that this should be a wake up call to the Western Conference saying, look, we're young, we're talented, we're only going to get better, we're coached very, very well. We have one of the best players, if not possibly the best player in the league if he wins MVP this season. We're going to be a team that you're going to have to recognize and fear and respect for years to come.
All right. Tyler, what about you? Biggest takeaway or thing that's caught you by surprise or something you've learned so far in this NBA playoffs?
It's that these bad boy Pistons are for real, man. They are not to be taken lightly. They had All-Star Cade Cunningham. You got Coach of the Year with JB Bickerstaff, and you had Sixth of the Man of the Year candidate with Malik Beasley. You got Hardaway making good shots. Jalen Duren playing ball. Isaiah Stewart didn't even play last game. He was injured. This team is not to be taken lightly. They should have won game one. They should have won game one, but they smoked it. But they're going back to Detroit, where you haven't had a playoff game in a long, long time. And y'all remember those playoff games back in Detroit. It's loud, it's rambunctious, it's everything that you want it to be in playoff basketball. So the fact that you're going 1-1 back home to New York, there's a good chance, and I'm going to go ahead and say, I got the Detroit Pistons winning this series against the New York Knicks. They're in the New York Knicks' head. Yes, Jalen Brunson had 37 points, but Asar Thompson is good at guarding him. He is athletic. He's big enough. This Pistons team has everything and more what it takes. And Tom Thibodeau, I mean, he might just not have the answers for JB Bickerstaff. In that last game, JB Bickerstaff was running circles around Thibodeau, just with his adjustments, with his substitutions, the way he was getting in their head with the physicality. Yes, I have the Detroit Pistons, and they're the biggest surprise because they won 3 times. That's never happened before. 3 times the amount of wins that they had last year this year. So they've tripled their win total this year. And to me, that's just amazing. And so we still want to say, oh, well, they're not that good. Oh, well, they're not here yet. No, they are here. They're here. Cade Cunningham, he's here. And so are the rest of these Pistons. And we'll find out tomorrow, the day after, if I'm right. But I guarantee you this one's at least going 6 or 7, but I have them winning.
Wow, you heard it here first. Pistons going to the second round. Tyler Reddington said it first. Dylan, what have you taken away from this NBA playoff so far?
For me, we could talk about the Thunder and how dominant they are. I feel like they were the bona fide one, as great as they were. The Pistons against the Knicks, definitely a little bit surprising seeing the Pistons putting up a fight, but I do love Cade Cunningham. And I do think the Pistons will definitely make that a great series. The team that I am looking at, I'm like, wow, they may shock people, is the LA Clippers. We're talking Kawhi Leonard turning back the clock, playing every minute pretty much in these past few games, going down to the wire, averaging 30 and efficient, like in real efficient shooting. Like he's not just chucking up shots and scoring 30. He's barely even missing when he takes his shots. He's averaging 2.5 steals over these past couple of games. He's getting busy on defense, which is again prime Kawhi. And then James Harden is just again balling. He's like it's amazing to me. I felt like Harden, he shouldn't. I felt like after his Hawks years, people kind of just dismissed him and was like, he's not like the 50-point guy that he was. He's not as good as he used to. James Harden, though, as a solid number two guy who can really score, who's been a very good playmaker. I've been loving what James Harden is doing, man. And then Zubac is just an absolute menace. Just like he's really showing that he's a bona fide, like a strong double machine, can get there at the rim when he needs to, and give, Jokic fits. I mean, Jokic is still being Jokic, but he's not having the quite as dominant performances as we've seen throughout the season because Zubac has really been there, stopping it. And honestly, looking at the rest of the team, they have like a lot of veterans. They have, your Norm Powell, your Batum, Chris Dunn, people forget about, but he's been quite a few year veteran now who's been a very solid defender. If the Clippers can get past the Nuggets, man, the Thunder and Clippers series is going to be very, very fun. We're going to be, because I think a big part of the NBA playoffs is your experience, how you can fight back from like being down. If you get punched in the mouth, you're going to be able to come back again next game and really show it. Kawhi Leonard has showed time and time again when he's on top of his game, he's arguably one of the best in the NBA. He's showing it again. James Harden again being amazing as he once was, averaging 25. I mean, he used to average 30 all the time, but when you have Kawhi averaging 30, it's hard to have two dudes averaging 30 in the same series. So honestly, I'm more surprised about the Clippers than anything. No one talked about the Clippers. I know with the Nuggets with Mike Malone, they're kind of in a tough spot with the Nuggets, so we could really see a little upset since the series is 1-1 going back to LA. I could really see the Clippers, being a real surprising team coming into the second round if they get past the Nuggets.
Okay, and I do interesting points on all three. I'm going to go ahead and give Dylan the best take because nobody's talking about the Clippers. I feel like the Clippers are one of those teams under the radar that everybody expects not to go anywhere. So it'd be interesting to see if they can get out of this first round and how far in the playoffs they may go. And then I'm going to go ahead and give Tyler the second best only because he has very strong conviction for those Detroit Pistons. And little fun fact: the last time the Pistons had a playoff game at home, it was the Palace of Auburn Hills. So they've never played a playoff game in the Little Caesars Arena. And then Arthur tied for second with Tyler. But I'm pretty sure nobody's sleeping on the Oklahoma City Thunder since they've led the Western Conference from pillar to post all year so far this season. All right, our final topic for the regular rounds here. We're going to shift to Major League Baseball. Oh, another open-ended question. As you see on the graphic, many of the stars of the game today. What's the biggest surprise so far of the season, if any? And we'll start with Tyler first. Tyler, that's you if you can hear us. I think you're on mute.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you now.
It's these San Diego Padres, man. They are playing some good baseball. They're 13-3. They're actually 10-0 at home. They are leading. They got the best batting average. Fernando Tatis is absolutely playing some great baseball. And this was a kind of make it or break it year for him. After he was signed a $300 million contract, and then you go down with the PED suspension. So everybody's looking at him like what he's going to do. And not only that, they have the best bullpen in baseball right now. They're only behind the Cubs in the MLB. They're also plus 30 run differential. That is not to be bothered with. It is easily the San Diego Padres. And the guys that they got in that trade from Juan Soto, they're pitchers. Those are the two best pitchers right now for the Padres. They're absolutely dueling. 13-3. It's the San Diego Padres.
Okay, very strong conviction from Tyler all night. I love it. Dylan, your takeaway on what's going on in MLB so far this year. What's the biggest surprise to you?
I think for me, I think the Braves are a big surprise. It's not for good reasons. I know the NL West has especially been crazy with all the hot teams right now, but the Braves being dead last in the NL East, I think is the most surprising to me. because year after year, the Braves have been a very talented team, but they've started out the gate very slow, very inconsistent. The bats will show up one night and then they'll get shut out the next night. You still have your Austin Riley, you still have your Ozzy Albies holding down the fort, as strong batters, but they're missing a lot, man. They're definitely not the same team that we've seen in previous years, and the pitching has been especially bad. Chris Sale, who's supposed to be like, he's always considered one of the best pitchers in the league. Through 5 starts, he doesn't have a single win. They only have one starting pitcher with under a 3 ERA right now, in Schwellenbach. And it seems like they're just getting pummeled game after game. And, especially in the division that they are, the Marlins and the Nationals should just be easy outs just about every series that they're facing, but they're just dropping games left and right. Like right now they're tied record with the Athletics, which is never a good thing to be with the same eye to eye with the Athletics. So for me, I feel like the Braves are very surprising that they're not, towards the top of the standings like they usually are. Do I think they'll turn around? Absolutely. But they gotta get that pitching straightened out for sure.
All right, and last but not least, Mr. Arthur Hurst.
After losing Juan Soto of the New York Yankees, it was about, okay, who's going to be that next guy to step up and take that mantle to help out Aaron Judge? And you would think it would be like guys like Jazz Chisholm Jr., Cody Bellinger, and Paul Goldschmidt, but really it's been guys like Trent Grisham and Ben Rice. Now, that's not saying that they'll continue with this throughout the season, but it goes to show you that they have depth. And when your depth is able to prove themselves, right, and these people, these players who somewhat overlook and say, okay, well, sure, but he's not these guys. He's not up in these tier of where that team is. And the fact that they're coming out and being able to play well and help the Yankees, even though it's been a bit of a rough start. They're 15-10 right now. They're only going to get better as the season goes on. But I believe the fact that Trent Grisham and Ben Rice have been able to help the Yankees and help out Aaron Judge and Jazz Chisholm Jr. and Cody Bellinger and the rest of those guys who are up on that tier haven't really been able to play their best baseball. Grisham and Rice have been able to help them stay afloat.
Okay. And let me see. We have no comments here. All right, so moving on to the final round with the best take so far, I've got to give it to Tyler. In a division where the Dodgers have held roughshod for over a decade, it's pretty astonishing to see a team that's not the Dodgers in the NL West. Of course, the Padres. Nobody's talking about their pitching, which you happen to bring up, and according to what I'm looking at here, they definitely do have the best team ERA in the league, so I'll give that to Tyler. Second best take, but moving on to the finals as well, is Dylan. Nobody, and not even myself, and I'm a Mets fan, and I have the Braves in my division, but I didn't think that they would not be putting up a fight at this point in the season. And at some point in sports, all giants have to take an L. So, Arthur, we do thank you for joining. But, we know you'll be back next week, and yeah, this is I feel like this is like your.
This might be a first. At least since I've been on here, this might be a first.
This is his Patrick Mahomes moment, but he'll be back next week, I'm sure. But Arthur, so we're gonna have you drop out of the frame for a second, but we'll bring you back at the end. So we have a Tyler Dylan finals. Let's go to the rules for the finals. One topic. Best take gets 10 points. The loser gets nothing. And our topic, Jimmer Fredette, who's played college basketball for BYU, has officially announced his retirement from professional basketball. Jimmer was last playing professionally overseas in China. So that brings me to the question, who was the best college basketball player to never have success in the NBA? Throughout the entirety of history, we'll start first with Tyler.
I'm not joking and I'm not mocking you when I say it is actually Jimmer Fredette. In 2010, I went to the first round of the NCAA tournament in Oklahoma City, where the BYU Cougars played the Florida Gators, and it was Jimmer Fredette and Chandler Parsons, and watching Jimmer Fredette play basketball at his size is absolutely one of the most prettiest, beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. He was drafted by the Kings and only had 4 points, so he had a terrible NBA career, and it was because of his size. He went overseas in China where he scored 70 points. And then not only that, there's videos of him, one-on-one, just beating everybody. His game was absolutely flawless. And to me, even at his size, it should have translated to the NBA. And to say that he retires I mean, if you actually watch Jimmer Fredette at BYU, watch him those few games he played on the Kings, and then in China, you would understand that dude had the coldest potential out of anybody. Was absolutely sick with the three. If you bid on the three, he was going to drive to the lane. He could pass it like Luka. This dude was absolutely incredible, but only had 4 points in the NBA. 70 in China, but 4 in the NBA. And was absolutely amazing. Naismith Player of the Year for BYU. So all you had to tell me was Jimmer Fredette, and that's the answer right there, my guy.
Okay. Dylan, what about you?
It's a tough one. There's been so many busts throughout NBA history. I think mine that I think is just more of a paradigm, more of just a surprise, and just I remember just being in that moment, being, "What is wrong with this dude? What is going on?" Is Markelle Fultz. In his 1 year in college basketball, he was an absolute stud, averaging 23 a game on a pretty bad Washington team. I can't lie. It's one of those things where sure you didn't have the March Madness thing like many other great busts have. But when you're averaging 23, you're averaging 5 assists, your field goal, you had very high efficiency. You had over 40% from three. And then you come into the NBA as a bona fide number one. Philly comes and drafts you. And then all of a sudden, he has like these phantom shoulder pains. No one knows what this injury is. He was going to doctors and no one could figure out what was wrong with him. And then all of a sudden his shooting motion just went like it was just totally different. It was night and day. And his time with the Philly was only 2 years. 2 or 3 years. They really did not give him any time to really be able to show himself. And even with Orlando, he kind of showed some of his potential, had a couple good years. But if I told you he was on the Sacramento Kings this year, would you believe me? Because no one probably knows that he was on the Sacramento Kings this year. That's how much of a fall from grace Markelle Fultz had. And especially with the height that the process was having during that time, when the Sixers were just again and again getting number one picks and having this promise of like, oh, we're just one great player away from having, the finals run and winning the championship. And then lo and behold, you get Markelle Fultz after Ben Simmons, who actually was really good at that time, believe it or not. But then Markelle Fultz never even showed what his potential was in college when he was averaging over 20 points a game on very high efficiency numbers. It was like, the Monstars from Space Jam took away his skills, and then that was it. It was just like he just never showed anything of what he should have been. So in my eyes, I think Markelle Fultz is one of the biggest what ifs.
Okay. Just going to the comments here before we announce the winner. Barry Grant says, I think Jimmer was born 15 years too late. He would have been great in the NBA now. That's a fair point.
That is very true. People know how to use their size better, being that small, and shooting matters a lot more. Very, very true comment.
Very fair comment, because Jimmer, I feel, is unfair. He went to the league when the league started to transition away from basketball of the 90s and the 2000s into what it is now. So, but I got to give the winner of today's game, Tyler, you made a hell of an argument, but more was expected out of Markelle Fultz than it was out of Jimmer coming out of college. Got to go ahead and give the win to Dylan. Dylan, you have the floor here.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I'm really excited about this NFL draft coming up as a Patriots fan. I'm really hoping for Abdul Carter to fall to the 4th spot. It's looking less likely, as we get closer and closer. But we'll see. I'm very excited for the NFL draft, and happy for another win.
So I got a quick question for you. You mentioned you're a Pats fan, excited for the draft. I read online some crazy rumor that the Eagles want to give up AJ Brown for you guys' draft pick. Would you agree to that?
AJ Brown's a hell of a talent. Somehow, I'd be very scared of Stephon Diggs and AJ Brown in the same room together. I feel like that would terrify every defense. It would terrify all the fans. You get two of the biggest psychopath #1 receivers in the league in the same room. They might just kill each other before the season starts. Will I take it? Hell yeah. I mean, of course. I mean, it's. I think the Patriots have potential if they play their cards right to at least be a fun team this year and not be at the top of the draft like they were the past few years. If we get AJ Brown, that would be great. That would be the icing on the cake, especially with all the spending they've done.
Well, you heard the man here first. But, folks, it's been another 8 o'clock spot. Stay tuned at the top of the hour at 9 o'clock Eastern. Mike Guido is going to have his NFL draft mock-up show. I'd like to thank Dylan, Tyler, and Arthur for their contributions to the show this week. And we'll catch you next week, Wednesday, with another 8 o'clock spot.
Appreciate y'all.